sing, for on this day Queen Elizabeth's reign becomes the cause of great euphoria and breaks the record set by Queen Victoria. You might not care depending on your views. And by the way, it's the Arlington Weekly News.
Hello, greetings everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Arlington Weekly News. I'm Craig Nolan. Thanks for joining us.
Bienvenidos, Mr. Nolan. I'm Daniel Pineda.
Bienvenidos, Senor Pineda.
And my name is Adele Quo.
That's Adele
I should
Quo.
say it with a British accent, but I
Adele
don't know that
Quo.
one.
I thought that was British. Okay, well, we have to cut down on the chit-chat tonight, so we'll get right to business
Absolutely.
here. All right, we have News and Community Bulletin Board, and Adele Quo is here with
It's Easy Being Green.
CBB, as I mentioned, Nort Beckerman in his Brain Healthy Minute. Rich is back. Yay, Rich.
Hey,
Signal in
Rich.
the Peanut Gallery, and here's reviews, news for seniors, and then an interview with from Miriam Gennari, and that's our show. But before we go, hey, social media reminder from Barton.
Yes, but first you can watch the Arlington Weekly News on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Arlington Weekly News and the number 1. And then on facebook.com/Arlington Weekly News. Craig.
Okay, here we go. We'll get right to the news. Here we go. Well, okay. I have to read this one off the hard copy, I guess. The prompter's stuck. There we go. Now, the news. Now, it's easy being green. Okay.
Is it easy?
Well, a Good Samaritan was stabbed after he tried to prevent a robbery. At around 12:40, just after 40 minutes after midnight on September 8th, a man tried to steal a purse from a 48-year-old woman. She was walking through the 5900 block of Arlington Boulevard with a 53-year-old male companion. When her friend tried to stop the robber, another person approached him and stabbed him in the chest and across his face. The victim was rushed to Inova Fairfax Hospital with life-threatening injuries after a passerby called 911. Both suspects are described as Hispanic males, each wearing a black T-shirt and dark pants, one about 5'4" in height, the other about 5'6". If you have any information, they're asking you to call Crime Solvers. Here's their number, 410-396-2411, if you have any information that may help police solve these very disturbing crimes. Daniel.
And Craig, Arlington Public Schools opened on Tuesday, September the 8th. The county superintendent, Dr. Pat Murphy, welcomed the students and their families with a recorded video message. The message is available on the website apsva.us, the public schools website. Dr. Murphy emphasized that APS will focus on its strategic goal number 5, meeting the needs of the whole child. This includes supporting students better and fostering stronger relationships with them. For more updates on back-to-school goings, go to their website, or actually hashtag APS Back to School or hashtag This Is My Goal campaign that's on Twitter.
Okay, is that how you read that? Hashtag. Thank you, Daniel. Here, in other news stories here. Another way that Arlington Public Schools is supporting the students is through safety measures. Superintendent Murphy, School Resource Officer Lieutenant Noack, and Arlington Police Chief Jay Farr provided a video message ahead of the start of the school on safety tips. The information applies to school bus riders, pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists. A quick tip and heads up on this for all drivers: school buses now have video cameras on board that will record you if you illegally pass by a bus with when they have their stop sign out. So don't do that, because if you do, you will be ticketed, and offenders will have to pay a $250 fine. That's a pretty hefty fine. So don't pass those school buses if they have their stop sign up. You can also visit APS website for more details. Daniel.
Well, Craig, if you own a dog or other pet, be sure not to leave them sitting in your car unattended. Summer may almost be over, but the weather is still hot, and they can suffer or die if left alone. Craig.
All right, we'll be back with our CBB Community Bulletin Board file right after we hear from Adele Quo, and it's easy being green. Here's Adele.
Hey everyone, welcome to It's Easy Being Green. My name's Adele Quo and Joe Tree Frog, my wonderful mascot here. We're going to be talking about gardening and playing in the dirt this fall. Now that summer vacation has ended and school started up again, let's turn our attention back to the local green news. The Master Gardeners of Arlington and Alexandria will host several gardening events in September. All are free and open to the public. As a huge fan myself of growing your own organic veggies and mixing edibles into your landscape design, here's a couple of my personal favorite Arlington events. Watch your screen for a listing of the important event dates. The first event, Edible Gardening in Containers, will be on Saturday, September 12th from 10:30 to noon at Ellen Coolidge Burke Branch Library. Learn how to use edible herbs and veggies in container arrangements that not only look beautiful, but can survive our harsh winters. The next day, on Sunday, September 13th, from 1 to 4 p.m. at Potomac Overlook Regional Park, attend the annual taste and tour of the Organic Vegetable Garden. You can enjoy tasty garden samples and talk with the Master Gardeners about growing veggies in Northern Virginia. You can learn about planting fall crops and overwintering your summer vegetables. You can just park in the lot and walk past the nature center to the garden. And there's going to be more events during the week. On Wednesday, September 16th from 7 to 8:30 at Fairlington Community Center. It will also be repeated on Monday, September 21st from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at Barrett Branch Library. You can join the free program called Putting Your Herb Garden to Bed. You can discover what herbs to prune, pull, protect, and bring inside, and herbs that can be planted in the fall. You can also learn tips and techniques for using or preserving your cut herbs, including how to make some flavored vinegars. Also, you can choose between two dates for the Fall Lawn Care Program, Saturday, September 19th from 10:30 to noon at Fairlington, or there will be another one on Tuesday, September 22nd from 7 to 8:30 p.m. also at Fairlington. Understand why fall is the ideal time to restore cool season grasses, how to improve your lawns and the underlying soil, and take steps to ensure a beautiful weed-free lawn. Alternatives to turf will also be explored. In my opinion, fall is the most pleasant time of year to work in your garden. So get your fall gardening groove on and get inspired by our Master Gardeners at these free events. And remember, it's easy being green, gardening, and playing in the dirt this fall.
I like playing in the dirt.
That's right.
One of my favorite things. Playing in the dirt. Thanks, Adele. We appreciate it. Moving right along now, as promised, our CBB, or Community Bulletin Board file. Here we go. First item on Saturday, September 19 at 4 in the afternoon. You can check out this music at Lubber Run. They'll have another musical treat for you. Rocknoceros. Great name. A band of 3 Northern Virginia natives, and they are Coach, Willie Bob, and Boogie Benny. Boy, with names like that, you gotta check them out. The award-winning trio, they've created family-friendly music together since 2005, and they've performed at such venues as the Kennedy Center, Wolf Trap, Lollapalooza, Austin City Limits, and Jammin' Java. You can visit their website, Rocknoceros, ROCKNOCEROS.com. For more details, the rain date for that concert will be September 20th at 11 in the morning. Daniel.
Jamming away, right, Craig?
Rocknoceros.
Yes.
That's great.
Well, Craig, we have two volunteer opportunities with Offender Aid and Restoration OAR. OAR is a community-based organization whose mission is to help offenders lead productive and responsible lives. They serve Arlington, Alexandria, and Falls Church. In Arlington, they support incarcerated people in the Arlington County Detention Facility. To learn more information about them and the following volunteer opportunities, go to their website. That's oaronline.org, or give them a call at 703-228-7031. Craig.
All right, Daniel, and other CBB news, well, volunteers are needed to host group classes for a variety of educational classes for OAR offenders and OAR members. The group will have about 8 to 15 participants each, and they will last about 90 minutes per class, and they'll run for about 6 to 8 weeks. Subjects include creative writing, computer skills, anger management, substance abuse, education, and conflict resolution. Training will be provided, and all volunteers must commit to at least 1 year of service. So OAR hopes that you can help them out with that volunteer opportunity. Daniel.
And Craig, OAR also needs help organizing their one-off special projects throughout the year. These include events such as Project Christmas Angel, which collects Christmas presents for children of offenders. Tasks include data entry, making calls, compiling informational materials, making deliveries, and more.
All right, Daniel, that's our CBB file, and we'll be back with Rich and his reviews, sitting right down here at the end of the desk, right after we hear from Nort Beckerman and his Brain Healthy Minute. Here's Nort.
Hi, I'm Nort Beckerman, author of A User's Guide to a Healthy Brain. The media frequently tries to get your attention using scientific findings, but you have to be careful. The article on carbohydrates is a good example. The article said that carbohydrates are great for brain function. What they forgot to say was that there are 2 types of carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates, such as refined sugar, white bread, white rice, and complex carbohydrates, such as brown rice, whole wheat breads, and your brain needs complex carbohydrates to function. But simple carbohydrates overload the brain with too much too fast, and it can damage brain function. Coffee is another media jumble. They report that people who drink 2 cups of coffee a day or less have lower risk at getting Alzheimer's. But people who drink more than 2 cups of coffee a day have a higher risk of Alzheimer's. That's a ridiculous statement. And it's ridiculous because they don't take into consideration lifestyle. People who drink more than 2 cups of coffee a day probably are more anxious, have increased stress, possibly smoke, don't exercise as much or get a good night's sleep. What's important is lifestyle. Remember, keep learning, stay hydrated, eat complex carbs, minimize your intake of simple carbs, and get a good night's rest. I'm Nort Beckerman. I'll see you next time for a Brain Healthy Minute.
All right, thanks, Nort. Nort Beckerman and his Brain Healthy Minute. Okay, as promised now, our man about town for Theater of the Arts and a whole lot more, Mr. Rich Masabny back at his old spot down there at the end of the desk. Good
Yeah.
Great to have you back, Rich.
Thank
Your
you.
turn.
Lots of fun has settled in at the Little Theater of Alexandria. Its current production of Laughingstock is set in the New England's Summer Stock Barn Theater, where a group of reluctant actors come together as a troupe to present 3 plays. That's Hamlet, Charlie's Aunt, and Dracula. The audience is treated to all kinds of stuff that's going on backstage, mishaps, and lights not working right, and the sound not working right. That's the first act. It's a lot of fun to see that. Then the cast led by writer, actor, producer Gordon Page, played by Lars Flores. The play is a bit confusing because of that first act, but comes together in the second act as the performers improve and the props appear at the right time and people know what they're doing. The lights and everything else, the sound effects, nice. Lots of laughs, though, in Laughingstock, which was directed by Sharon Byers. It runs through September 26 at the Little Theater of Alexandria. For more information, tickets call 703-683-9999. 0496. And check their website, www.thelittletheater, and that's with an R-E at the end, thelittletheater.com. Coming up next, though, at the LTA is another comedy, The Allergist's Wife. Now I want to give you just some upcoming events, about 4 or 5 things that I think are worthy of mention. Virginia Opera starting its new season at the Center for the Arts at George Mason with a fun opera called Orpheus in the Underworld. It will have just 2 performances, October 3 and 4. For information and tickets, call 888-945-2468. Signature Theater, opening on September 29 and running through November 22, is a world premiere musical called Cake Off, a battle of baking sexists. I can't wait to see this one. For tickets, call 703-820-9721. Arena Stage, another favorite of mine, the world premiere of a comedy called Destiny of Desire, written by Karen Zacharias, opens September 11 and are running through October 18. It involves the switching of newborn twins. I'll have a review next week about this show. For more information and tickets, call 202-488-3300. Now, I just want to mention that the Prince William Little Theater in Manassas are doing William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. And one of our popular local actors around town, and a guy I know, Jay Tilley, is playing Brutus. He's a fine actor. From October 16 to the 25 at the Hilton Performing Arts Center. That's a beautiful place, too, in Manassas. For information and directions, you call 888-945-2468. And then finally, another favorite place, that's what I kind of like to give you my favorite places, is Metro Stage, a dramatic musical called Uprising. This is a story based around John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry and the strength and love of an emancipated woman. The show runs September 17 through October 25 in Alexandria. For tickets, call 703-548-9044. And if you've taken the notes on that, you can't go wrong. And I just want to mention a reminder to check my website, www.richmasabny.com, and my blog, like my reviews and all are on that. richmasabnyreviews.blogspot.com. So thank you, boys. That was a fast one, but
no, you're not. Not only you're back in action at the desk, you're a blogger now.
I know.
How did that happen?
well, I have to do something new, you know.
Short but sweet, right?
Yeah.
Right. Good stuff. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Great to have you back. We appreciate your efforts, and
My pleasure.
we'll look forward to having you here next week.
Thank you.
All right, as promised now, moving right along is our News for Seniors file, and here we go. Moving right along, News for Seniors, roll it. Okay, thank you. Aurora Hills Senior Center is holding an open house that will spotlight Arlington's history on Friday, September 18 from 11 till 3. Writer Charlie Clark will lead the program. Mr. Clark has authored Arlington County Chronicles and Our Man in Arlington. For more information, give them a call. Here's their number, 703-228-5722. Senor Pineda.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. World traveler Kelly Arthur will discuss her trip to South Africa on Thursday. That's September the 17th at 10 a.m. at Walter Reed Senior Center. She visited Victoria Falls, went on a safari, and visited other South African attractions. To register for this free presentation, just give them a call at 703-228-0955 for a trip to South Africa. Craig.
Gracias, Senor Pineda. Here we go. The rest of our News for Seniors files. Walter Reed Senior Center will host two workshops on life after retirement. Dr. Sid Sherrow, a certified life coach and positive life change specialist, will lead the workshops on Saturday, September 19 starting at 9:30 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon. And then on Sunday, September 20th, from 1:30 to 5:30. Class sizes are limited, so call and register early for these FREE programs. Here's the number to call, 703-228-0955. Daniel.
And Craig, the 2015 Northern Virginia Senior Olympics are in full swing until Friday, September the 25th. Events are at multiple Northern Virginia venues to watch track, rowing, basketball, and your favorite, Craig, pickleball events. Yes. Visit Arlington's
Like
Thomas
saying
Jefferson Community Center. Arlington Mills Senior Center is hosting a new event on the final day, the Cornhole Toss. For more information, call Judy Masobny. That's at 703-228-4721. Thank you, and we of course we want to thank our own Judy Masobny. Thank you so much, Judy, for all of your hard work.
Thanks, Judy. We appreciate your efforts, and we'll be back with a quick bye-bye if we have time right after we hear from Miriam and her guest. Here's Miriam Gennari.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Sustainable Scoop. My guest today is Mike Dietrich. He's the founder of Renew and Sustain Consulting. He's also a best-selling author and an award-winning filmmaker. But today, we are going to talk about the very unique work he does, greening and building sustainable schools, particularly one of the projects he did in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I think our viewers can tell right off that for someone in an emerging industry that's just beginning to develop, you're very young. So tell me, how did you get involved in this field? Tell me about just how did it start? Right.
Well, about 15 years ago, I started doing some research, and I worked with a dean from my school at Plattsburgh University. When we went down to Mexico and we were doing research in a sulfur cave, which was fantastic, but then it was the first time I got to see something about ecotourism and how humans were impacting this precious ecosystem. Fast forward a couple years, I started working with the National Science Foundation on a fellowship, and I got to study the upland Adirondack watershed, where it was about management and the effects on the watershed and how we're impacting the riparian zone. So I was a little frustrated with constantly seeing this impact. So I took a step back, and then I got into the construction industry, looking at safety, quality, how we're installing our utility lines, looking at blueprints, looking at foundations, why we're building the way that we build. And I did that for about 2 years, and then the economy tanked, and I got laid off. Well, I guess it didn't tank, but it slowed down, and I got laid off. And then that's when I started my own business, trying to figure out how to create a better balance between the environment and people. And that segued into going to Africa and seeing larger scaled systems, doing environmental impact assessments, working with the federal government.
Can I just brag on you for a moment? You were recently at the Green Festival in Washington, D.C.,
Right.
and you were lecturing on the topic. So you've got a real global view,
Right.
not just from your travel, but your experience. You're headed to L.A., San Francisco, Portland, and one of the focuses is on benchmarking and schools. And why is that so important?
Well, as I was saying, from that federal government position, I segue into working with DC public schools and overseeing the sustainability of that modernization program. And that has segued into figuring out how we can categorize where we are in the building process, how to quantify that, go back through during construction, and then follow up with commissioning. And through that process, we can streamline efficiency.
But it's such an expensive thing to do, to build a new school or even to do upgrades. So how did you convince the people in D.C., I mean, school systems are strapped, to invest that much money? And tell us about the Dunbar project.
Right. So part of that process is looking at your return on your investment. So if you put up shade walls, you can reduce the tonnage of the HVAC system. If you increase insulation, you can reduce the tonnage of the HVAC system. So you can do this line-to-line transfer. Dunbar, for example, is now rated the greenest school in the world.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, thanks to an entire team for making that happen. I'm only one player. It was definitely a large effort by everybody involved.
Tell me some of the upgrades or the special things about Dunbar that makes
Sure.
it number one.
It's the highest LEED-rated newly constructed school in the world. Yay.
Congratulations.
So that's fantastic.
Remarkable.
91 out of 110 points.
Wow, that's remarkable.
There is, on the south wall, there's shade walls. So there's light shades that shade the building. On the west side and off the gym, they're vertical. So the building was oriented in the right way in order to maximize the benefits, which segue into daylighting. Having all that natural light come in, having the ceilings that are sloped. Those sloped ceilings then are using a daylight harvesting system in the lights, so they're dimming down by the windows to have an optimal 35 to 50 foot candles, and we're using about 0.8 watts per square foot of energy for that lighting system.
You're also generating energy, are you not?
Yeah, we are. So Dunbar was the first power purchase agreement in the history of the District of Columbia, which has segued now into a 10 megawatt power purchase agreement procurement that is underway. So the solar panels on top are generating about 400 kilowatts worth of energy.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I noticed when I watched some of the footage of the work that you did at Dunbar? The tremendous pride. It's so interesting how you have to convince people to do these things, but then when they finally do them, it's a source of personal value to them and the community. And not just Dunbar, but you've also helped the community. Bike share.
Right, we incorporated a bike share program right over there on New Jersey and N Street. We worked with the council members who are working with the community. We also opened O Street, which has 6,000 square feet of rain gardens to absorb all the water from a rain event. This is a great example of how we can redevelop our landscape.
So what I think is really important is that people understand that someone like you who comes in and consults can do this for schools, you can do it for companies, you can do it for entire communities. So how do people reach out to you to learn more about your consulting firm?
Well, there's the online, so renewandsustain.com, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
They got to read your book, too, your
That's right.
best-selling book.
On Amazon.
Absolutely. So guests, please do look up Mike Dietrich's book. I want to thank you so much, Mike, for joining me today. I hope you'll come back because there's a lot of topics to discuss.
Yes.
All right. I want to thank you, viewers, for watching The Sustainable Scoop. I'm Miriam Gennari. Back to the news desk.
All right, thanks, Miriam.
Thank you, Miriam.
Talking about building those sustainably green LED buildings. Mm-hmm. It's always a good thing. Anything to add before we go, gentlemen? What do you think, Rich? Should we do it again next week?
Why not?
Why not? What the heck?
We've been doing it for 30 years.
30 years.
So,
What's one more week, I guess? Yeah, we'll try it again next week. We thank you for watching this edition of the Arlington Weekly News somewhere around the early part of September, back to school. This is our back to school edition of the Arlington Weekly News, I guess. So we thank you for watching, and we hope you have a safe week.
Absolutely.
And come back and join us again.
Next week.
If you're there, we'll be here to do it all again for you. Have a safe week. Take care.
Peace.
Bye-bye.